2, 1. So hi, Anne.
Hi, Hillary. Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I'm arriving back home after a powerful gathering this weekend and really psyched and thrilled and moved to be here with JWOW, who I was
Wonderful.
with on Friday as well, in an incredibly powerful gathering with, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
40 to 50 women around a
Oh,
Mayan fire ceremony. So, and hearing
yeah.
her amazing wisdom and drumming and voice
Mhm.
coming through and empowering all of us is quite profound.
Yeah.
So that's where I
Very nice.
am. How are you?
Good, good, good. I'm pretty good. I'm by my friend's place, with the computer situation. So I'm just was fortunate to be blessed with her accepting me coming over and using her internet and her place, to see if it works better than where I live. So I'm
Great.
really appreciating her doing that, and let's see what happens. But yeah, it's been great. I mean, it's a little bit drizzly here right now, but we had basically beautiful weather, and I'm just enjoying the summer.
Wonderful.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
And so, welcome to everybody else too. I'm so happy that we all here, Opiami and JWOW for the second time. I'm really happy to have her here and see what comes up later on.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, including Ronnie Jean as JWoww's paladin and supporting
Yes,
us
yes.
all in this gathering today. Thank you. I had the honor to meet Ronnie Jean on Friday as well, and that was really a gift.
Good, good. So, you want me to continue
Yeah,
as
please.
usual?
Yeah.
So again, we have this is I think if I'm not mistaken, it's our 11th
Mm-hmm.
gathering, and we have JWOW here as our guest speaker um, with a very important topic, and I can't wait to hear what she brings to the table today. I'm so excited. So welcome everybody. And I hope that everyone we took some time off for the summer to kind of, I mean, everybody is so busy enjoying or doing their own thing. And so we thought it would be a good time to take a break and just get outside there and, pay attention to what is going on in our own lives and try to enjoy the summer. So I'm hoping that everybody is doing the same and having a wonderful summer as much as possible with all the energetic changes and astrological changes and whatever not we have going on outside there. It's still a beautiful time, and I hope everybody is being well and taking care of themselves. So that's very important. So um, my Hillary and myself, we just refreshed the the vision and the intentions. So I'm going to take a few minutes to read it out for everybody so that it's clear. And if you want, you could go back on the web on the Facebook page, and it's there, so you could read it yourself what the mission says and the intention and vision. But I just want to read it out, the flow of it as we touch it a bit and let you know how everything flows. So, but before I do that, I would like to just ground the energy a little bit by taking a few deep breaths. And I would like to just light an incense. I'm going to do jasmine today. I know we're going to talk, JWOW is going to talk about sexuality. So let's do a little bit of jasmine so that we clear the air a little bit. And if we could just bring our attention back to ourselves so we could be more present in the moment. And we're going to take some deep breaths in for the count of 4. Hold for a count of 2. And exhale for a count of 4. And we could do that a few times. And if we could focus on the root chakra, which is where we're going to be with sexuality, focus the energy on the root chakra, that would be helpful a bit. So in for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 4. And when you feel ready, we could open our eyes. So I'm just gonna read out the mission statement, the vision and intention, so that we get a little bit centered with it. So the mission statement is to hold space for raw, honest conversations and storytelling on diverse topics that addresses cultural differences while we're looking at race and race reconciliation. Our vision is it aims to empower self-expansion through self-inquiry and creative expressions for all. Our intention for each gathering is to have, again, raw, honest, and open storytelling with people of diverse backgrounds, discussing their experiences of inequality between the races and how these experiences have affected them personally and in society as a whole. And we facilitate an atmosphere of support to bring about greater harmony and healing for all. So that's really the goal, the intention. And I hope that we could sit with that and really contemplate it while the conversation is happening, you know. And we do have some guidelines to follow. I'm just gonna straighten my paper. These guidelines are the gathering, it's all inclusive. It's equal opportunity for all. We should speak from the heart of our experiences, strive to be curious about others' experiences, respect each other and their experience, honor one's own and each other's truth, be courageous and encouraging of others, be mindful of time, and we should welcome and receive feedback with gratitude. And as we do always say that from gathering to gathering, we should celebrate our risk taking, because obviously it is putting ourselves outside here, and sometimes it takes a little bit of courage to do that.
think she's frozen.
She froze, yeah.
Let's see if she comes back in a minute. We haven't had too long freezing this time. But we were complete with that. I do wonder if she wants to give any kind of sharing about our shift. Anne inspired the change in the guidelines to be able to speak to this desire for self-expansion through the conversations, and that we do that. We've had these conversations recently through self-inquiry and creative expression. And so we're inviting that as this vision for what we are creating together. We're inviting our own internal expansion from that place of inquiry and creative expression. And so we hold that for all of you, everyone who joins us present on a Zoom call and who is involved in the Facebook page and who also watches these gatherings.
Awesome.
And Hillary was just speaking into the space when you froze. She kept the
she kept going. Wonderful.
Part of the conversation going. So that's just, I want to say that's some beautiful work together right there.
Yeah. That's great.
Working with the technology.
With technology. Not perfect, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, yes.
Yeah, we do our best.
Good job.
Yes.
So is there anything else you want to share, Anne, about the guidelines and your inspiration for making that shift?
Yeah, well, the shift of, I hope it doesn't freeze right now. It's really like, wanted to clarify that the intentions and it was congruent with my personal and Hillary's, what we are wanting to bring personally. Like, I didn't want there to be like a disparity between how what I stood for and perhaps what she stood for and what we are talking about and bringing to this gathering. So I just wanted to clean it up a bit and really feel that resonance with it the way I intended to be, and so that everything flows. You know, for me, flow is very important. And what was coming up for me is the fact that obviously I have some strong belief in what we focus on expands, and how we create our own reality. And with those concepts in mind, I felt it was important to, as much as we look at the things, we have to look at the things that brought us to this point, like a lot of the sufferings and all of these things. But what we don't want to get caught up in is to get sucked into the negativity, that we expanding the negativity rather than contributing to the solutions of the whole thing. And my intention, and I'm speaking for me personally, I want to feel that I'm a contributing factor to empowering people rather than disempowering them. And I believe in not feeding a person for a day or two, but rather helping the person to feed themselves. So so the empowerment is really, and the self-inquiry is really to help people to understand their own power of feeling themselves. They have the power. We all have the power. There's no person on this planet that is more magical, more enlightened. We have that, okay? But the possibility exists that could be for everybody. That's what I'm trying to say. It's there for everybody. So with that in mind, we just need to help. If I could be an inspiration in some way, or if something I say could help somebody to open that door, that light, to see it within themselves, that my job is done. So that's just what came up for me. And I just want to say a little bit about Kevin's talk, the last speaker last time. What we spoke about in that gathering brought up for me for the need for us to really pay attention to our mental health, to our self-care in terms of, but really to look at our mental health, because it's been an aspect of ourselves that really have been under I don't know, like you could say, like it's not taken into consideration a lot, not in the way in the way it should. But I think a lot of healing in the world would come from us really understanding our mental state and clearing up a lot of the gunk that is built up there that needs to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. And that is something that came up very strongly for me with that Kevin talk. I mean, there was a lot of things that went in there, but I'm just saying, I'm just isolating that now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. And it inspired this conversation as well, because we were talking about how we care for our bodies and our minds, and can step forward from that place of self-care to do the work of self-empowerment and other empowerment. Mm-hmm. And it really requires looking at our belief systems. And I know JWOW is all about that. And and yeah, Kevin shared a lot with us, and I really recommend watching that gathering, because he's a professor of social justice as a mixed, queer, delightful, gay, joyful being, and just exudes amazing energy in general. And he brings that to his university classes with people who want to be doing this work more professionally. And he's really aligned with the praxis and the self-praxis for himself. It really comes out of his heart in a beautiful way. So thank you, Anne, for all of that sharing. And
you're welcome.
I want to ground us into this practice a little bit more and acknowledge that we are in a lineage of reconciliation council practice from Strong Oak of the Visioning Bear Intertribal Coalition. And I actually met a board member of the Visioning Bear this past weekend, Grandmother Nancy, who is an amazing elder grandmother of the Cherokee Nation, and also French Quebecian as well. She has a beautiful story, and the gift that Strong Oak gave me was to be a part of this lineage in doing council practice. And when I met Anne, it transmuted into this very different form online. So we don't do the tradition, but we do acknowledge it, and we do bring in talking stick as an acknowledgement of that. Yeah. So before we transition, to JWOW, I'll put up that talking stick just as that acknowledgement. And I also want to acknowledge that we are here with all of our ancestors too. And so in this moment, I invite you to go inside, close your eyes, and be with your body, mind, spirit. Take that deep breath again. And I invite in our ancestors who are whole and healed from our distant past, who have been aligned with the earth and with the infinite, and who are here to support us in this work of reconciliation. Thank you. And I also want to honor the ancestors of the land. We are all in different places, and there are so many indigenous nations, tribes of these different places. I want to acknowledge that we are on these stolen lands, most of us, if not all of us. And I want to say I'm sorry as a representative of the settler peoples. I'm sorry for the injustice. I'm sorry for the genocide. And my prayer is that your cultures, your indigenous wisdom can be shared and flourish, and that your peoples may be whole and thriving again on your lands. And I also want to invite in any of our guides and guardians, protectors, benefactors, who are here to be of support for us in this journey, this evening, and in our lives in relationship to all beings. Thank you. All right. Well, I feel pretty grounded. How about you all? Yeah? All right. I feel like we can move forward and that we've had this grounding time together so far. And I really want to get to JWOW and her sharing. So I'm just going to invite us for this moment to first of all just feel our roots. And we can keep our eyes open if you want. You can close your eyes, whatever supports you. Because that is, like Anne said, what we are focusing on today. And to feel that root from the center of your spine going through your perineum down into the earth, gently penetrating our Mother Earth. And as we go down, I also invite us to receive. So I invite you to breathe in the nourishment from our mama through those roots, into your belly, into your womb if you have one, into your gut, to ingest her nourishment and to receive from her. And then also to breathe out and release into her whatever you're no longer needing, because she can hold it all and she wants us to release and to be held and supported and nourished by her. So at any time during this gathering, we can be in this breath of receiving from the earth through our roots and of releasing and giving to her what we no longer need. Being in both penetration and reception, in giving and receiving. And really enjoying and being with that bliss of giving and receiving as well. So this is an embodied experience, even though we are not in body together. Okay, so next I want to invite us all to speak our names into the space. I see that Joy left, and I hope she's able to join us again. And we may have other people joining us. Sometimes that happens. So as they come in, if JWOW isn't speaking, in between we'll invite them to share their name as well as their intention for being here today too. So just go popcorn style, and I'll go first as an example. And so I am Hillary, and also known as Star Dragon 69 in some circles, and I'm bringing that out a little bit more. Woo, and turning red while I say that. And my intention is to be full and whole and feel deeply and hold space with my expanded, aligned self. Thank you. So, anyone else who'd like to share, please pop on and come off of mute and share.
This is Opayemi. I'm going to stay on safe driving mode because, as I said, I have this little smartphone, not a screen. And my intention is to really listen to this root piece. The idea that this 2 hours is looking at root issues. And I have listened to JWOW and her work on inclusive language. So I am in active listening mode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anne, and I am sitting here with receptivity today. I just sense that there's a lot of that coming up, and just open to joy and love. That's basically it. You know, to share that, to bring that presence to the whole thing.
Thank you.
My name is Ronnie Jean, and I am here to listen and learn and ready myself to connect with the world in a new way.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
My name is JWOW, and I'm here to grow with this particular configuration of humanity that Spirit's brought forward. It's always the right one. It's been the right one for decades, and that's not going to change. And so I get to grow with as I share what it is that I see and feel, and then hear back. And that's part of what I love about this is the interactivity, the using, growing in our relationship with technology that lets us share at this level across massive distances and both geographic and belief differences so that bridging can occur. So I'm here to facilitate that bridging and to offer pieces of what I've learned about how to bridge that people can use every day. My goal is to have folks walk away from this with just a little bit more of an idea of how to bridge across different gaps in their life so that they're getting more juice from every aspect of their life. And starting with the root chakra conversation, all in, because that's origin medicine right there. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you. So I have the absolute honor to introduce my beloved friend and tribe member and elder and teacher, mentor, beloved JWOW. And we got an update of your bio. Just I got to read it like probably an hour and a half ago, and so I'm really moved by what you shared. And so I'm gonna not read directly from it, but I just want to share that. So I love this seculo-spiritual love in action. Like, this is the work that you're doing. I love your languaging, and I've learned so much about language from you and how to create reality through the word. And that helps me to understand, honestly, the education that I've had in theology in a much deeper way. And so you have inspired me to step forward as a preacher, because you called me out the first time you saw me. and called me preacher girl. And I was like, you don't see me, no. And over the years, and you calling me in and out more and more, I have owned my own wisdom and my voice and my embodiment and my beauty and being in ways I didn't know were possible just by being around you and receiving your stories. And that ranges from your work in these gatherings that I've been with you around the fire and with women and with men as well, and doing the gender reconciliation work. And of course, our work here on Grace Between Races and supporting our beginnings as well, and also hearing the stories of your work at the Pentagon with 4- and 5-star generals, and your experiences of performing music at Carnegie Hall and with other elders. And I mean, I've certainly felt it and felt the power myself, and the mutual empowerment that your voice offers in so many ways, not to mention your drumming. So, and then your inspiration to feed so many people, feeding over 170,000 families in 4 states before you started the nonprofit. So if people are interested to find out more, you can read the bio on this event, and we'll also post it on Grace Between Races. And I'm sure there are other resources. There's also 2 Forbes magazine articles that you sent, and those links are on the event. The links will also be on Grace Between Races, so people can read that. It's about the language of inclusion. And anything else that you want to speak to, JWOW, of course, about how people can stay connected to you and who you are and how you want to welcome them into your planet, is so very welcome. So today, as I came from 3.5 days of being with grandmother elders, starting with JWOW and I believe 7 other elder grandmothers. It was a beautiful array of women from so many different backgrounds, speaking their truth and singing their truth and dancing their truth and claiming it with staves around this very profound Mayan fire ceremony together. And what you shared about sexuality in that context was very inspiring for me, having had a conversation with you just earlier that day, and then hearing how that landed and feeling how that landed in community with women, and then bringing that energy through the weekend into a community village where we did a 30+ hour fire ceremony together. And we're through the night and being in my own journey with my own power. And so I'm really grateful for the teachings that you and the other grandmothers offered. And I invite you to continue that here and share with us whatever is inspiring you right now.
Hi, for those of you who are seeing this after we've spoken, welcome and thank you. I want to say right off the bat that one of the ways that we have an opportunity to be a part of weaving our own legacy is by acknowledging that we have something possible with modern technology, where in this moment I am literally speaking myself into my own future. The people who watch this, we're all doing it by being here now. We actually get to matter across time and distance because of technology. That's why I hope more and more spiritual beloveds will stop eschewing technology and say, look, you give me an opportunity to literally multi-locate. So that means that our medicines can go further. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for this opportunity. Just right off the bat, all of you who are here, and Anne and Hillary, thank you so much. What Hillary said about how we connected was absolutely yummy. And part of it for me is really getting to see with you how important languaging was before this came to me in a more whole fashion. So I want to establish really quickly, a couple of definitions that I use. Hi, Devin. Because by having the same languaging, we're going to be working inside the same rubric as we're, thinking through and feeling into what it is that can come out of this as potential bridging. Does that make sense for everybody? Fantastic. Opeyemi, I can't see you, and Devin, I can't see you or hear you, so I'm going to assume that it is a nod as long as you stay on here, because I imagine you guys are keeping yourselves safe, and I prefer that. So, okay. Which means there's a whole bunch of JWOW amen that is now on top of you and Hillary, you and Ann and Ronnie Jean, because the other people can't do nothing. Okay, great.
Also, we can do like hippie hands.
Hippie hands.
Dancing.
I like saying hippie hands when I'm with hippies because they think that's funny, and so do I. Okay. First, let's talk about the power of naming things to claim them, so that we're in a position to name the bridges we wish to claim. That's why this is an important piece. Okay. So the quick version. Language controls and generates reality. So when you control the language, you control the imagination, what it is that people are capable of thinking of. When you control the imagination, you control the narrative, what it is that people speak out of what they imagine could be true. When you control the narrative, you control the culture. Enough people speaking the same narrative begins to set the foundation for cultural expansion, because you have a shared language that you can use to build that culture. When you control the culture, if you're controlling multiple people's ability to speak their reality, you are controlling or stewarding their reality, depending upon whether or not you have benevolence, somewhere between benevolence and malevolence in your heart. Okay, does that make sense, folks? Hippie hands. Okay, great. All right. So that's the language into reality piece. Great. There's the possibility for discipline around things where the discipline is not a burden. It's actually a portal into freedom. And love is one of the greatest keys for that. At the risk of speaking tofu yogurt, love is one of the great keys for that. Okay? Love evolves discipline into freedom. Okay? Got that? Hippie hands. Okay, great. There's a sequence out of the fundamentals of humanity that takes us up culturally as well as individually. Our culture is a reflection of the meta culture that we share with others, is a reflection of our individual nanocultures. Okay? And when they aggregate, when they come together, they create a rubric of a particular culture around a chakra. We literally have chakra cultures that we have built that are possible on a physical level because of the sharing that technology makes available. So the discussion that we're having today is a discussion about the nano and meta cultures at a root chakra level. Now, let's step away from the chakra system for a second. Now we're going to get in the meat of the sexuality piece. So when you step away from the chakra system, or rather when you dance with, when you contact improv dance with the chakra system, then you're moving, let's look at it as a journey towards our humanity as it moves towards what's possible for the divine to be inside us. So our humanity is that journey, okay? It starts with not dying. The bottom, the foundation of living is not staying alive. The foundation of living is not dying. Okay, if you manage to not die enough times, you get to safety. Got it? When you stay safe across time consistently, you can evolve into a sense of security. Security is consistent safety repeated over time. With me? Okay, thank you. When you have the ability to generate security for selves and other, you're moving into sovereignty because you are clearing. I don't declare because deceleration means you go slower, and decreasing means you have less. So I'm not going to declare, I'm going to clear. So I clear a reality of security for myself and other, and I get to sovereignty because that's reach, that's power, that's choice that holds power. Choice, when you make a choice as opposed to a decision, you're actually exercising your power more. A decision is a T-bar thing, pros and cons, which one am I choosing, and it doesn't matter what I really want to do, it's just like what's on the paper. A choice is, yeah, I know what's on the paper and it says that jumping off of cliffs is not a smart thing to do, and someone just went off a cliff and I'm gonna jump off it with them because that's what I do, because so far I keep jumping off of cliffs and I don't die. So I'm gonna jump after somebody who does the cliff. That's a stupid choice, it's a choice, and I make it, okay? And it's a choice. There's power in that. Because there's that declaration of, I keep jumping off of cliffs and I don't die. I'm going to work with that and see if I can have the strength to create the security of not dying with another being. So I'll jump off the cliff with you and then do the things that I do so that when we land, we don't die. Okay. The expression of sexuality is being used as a weapon to divide us away from the pleasure we could feel in our excellence. Would have us, because of the discipline of being excellent, be able to move into the freedom of simply enjoying our self-expression and knowing that it will be received. When we talk about penetrative and receptive energies, oh, there's three things I want to define. I want to define power. Power is the ability to influence that which is not our isness. It's our reach and our ability to influence, okay? Then when you have, instead of talking about masculine and feminine energies, when you talk about penetrative and receptive energies, then that starts being available to the conversation, even though it originates out of literal make more humans sexuality, not sexuality like, you know, whether or not you're wearing a corset or whatever your visual lust thing is. It's just like, look, no human race, and we all make some more babies, and if you put the innie and the outie, you get more humans. Okay? When we look at sexuality without the baggage, it's make more people. When we talk about penetrative and receptive energies, we take the conversation about the flow of energies outside of the realm of the baggage of sexuality, which actually frees up sexuality. This is a discipline of languaging around sexuality in this moment that's going to give us room to actually have the conversation. Is everyone with me? Give your hands, fantastic. Okay. Hey, Devin. So, sexuality is one piece, race is another piece. With the same precepts around naming to claim, and how power is defined, and what we want to do from a sovereign place of expression, of being in service to selves and other, so that we have a dynamic flow of energy out and in. We are getting fed and nourished by the beauty that we give. We are, we get to receive back a composted or transmuted form of the love that we've given, and it comes back to us from the people with whom we express well what we feel. Can you hear that, fam? Fantastic. Oh, Devin, as the one young man on this call, baby, don't grow up and get hot flashes. It can be fun, and sometimes it can be really, really hard. I'm just saying, okay? So, all right. Race, in this case, I can specifically speak to being a Negro in America. When I was growing up, my birth certificate says Negro. That's not a bad word, okay? That there was a thing that we were not too many generations ago as cattle. And so how our sexuality was seen as animal rut. They literally wrote, I read original pieces from the 1700s about what they said about Black people as animals, our animal brethren. Okay, so our sexuality was literally just seen as all you're doing is making more things. There's no possibility for romanticism that's in real. Even if you ape, and that's the word they used, if you ape our behaviors, our white behaviors of romanticism and care, it can't really be that because you're just animals. Okay, so, and by the way, all the white people on this call, take a deep breath, feel the pain, and then let that mess go, because we have some work to do, and the pain is only going to supplant your power and your ability to make a difference with us. Totally get it that you feel the pain. Love that you do. Thank you so much. That's why you're here. Okay? And do not let that take you down. We don't have time for that. We can all mourn at some other point when we mourn together. Okay, I'm not asking you to do a jig or be happy about it. I'm just saying, let's get real about what you're feeling and let go of anything that's getting in your way. Please. And y'all work on that. Can you work on that, hippie hands? Okay. When you hold a context that a thing is less than, there is a feeling that you can do whatever you want to it. So when it's that an entire race, male or female, is less than, you can do anything you want with the entry points offered for your sexuality into that individual, otherwise known as raping your slaves. I've got an Audi, I'm going to put it in your whether you want me to or not, because I own you. Let's get real about sexuality. Can I cuss on this show? I just want to say one bad word. It was not a bad word, it's just bang. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get real, y'all. Intercourse, making love, having sex, fucking, and rape are all exactly the same cis act. It's an outie and an innie, and that's all it is. So the rape and the amazing orgasmic lovemaking that you did, they're the same act. And the sooner we get that it's the context, not the act, that's the issue, that's a lot easier to change. We're not looking to change the behavior without having changed what's behind it. Okay? What's underneath it. I'm going to add one more piece about sexuality, and it's not so much about sexuality, it's about genitalia. Okay? The way that we know the bulk of what we know about gynecology for women is because this one man, this one doctor, bought 200 female slaves, and then he did vivisection on them to see how all the parts worked while his assistants held them down. Okay, and then he drew it while they were screaming and bleeding out. That's real. When you care so little now, it's not just that you're raping the women that you own, now you're taking them apart because you own them. It shows a lack of respect for their even animalness. It's a lack of any sort of respect for them having any feeling at all. And when that's woven into a patriarchal culture that is a penetrative culture, then that leads to everything from peeing on the side of a building because you can do anything you want because you have a dangly, to rape and pillaging in war. And all of that's a wide spectrum of, I have no respect for you or your property. So if that thing that I am okayed by society, and I'm talking about connotatively okayed, not denotatively okayed. Of course rape is bad. Of course it's bad to rape and pillage. We're going to look the other way while you do it. But of course it's bad, okay? We get to say it's bad and there are repercussions for doing the things. And even before that, we weave respect, self-respect, and respect for other into what we do with all of our bodies. And I want to be really clear, rape doesn't just happen when an outie goes in an innie. Ask any young man who's been raped by his mother. Okay, I'm talking about that act. It's not just about lack of consent, because we're going to come to that. It's not about a lack of it's not just a lack of consent. It's an empowered no that gets crushed. So it's not just the lack, it's also I put the thing up and it gets flattened. Okay. All these pieces are going to come together in a minute, sort of like an Eddie Izzard comedy routine. Okay, you just got to hold on to the pieces and we'll all come together. All right. Sexuality happens at a root chakra level. It happens at a survival level. The meta survival imperatives in the human culture dictate that some sort of sperm and egg event occur. However that happens, you do it in a jar, you can do it in a, in a cervix, like whatever you do, but there needs to be some sperm egg event. Okay. See, the lovely thing about precise language is you can start peeling away the baggage. You can peel away the cultural baggage and the personal baggage and just talk about what the event does. This is a survival level event. Remember, I talked about going through the thing. First, you don't die, you get to the survival, you get to the safety. So what comes after the survival level event of sperm and egg? What's the next thing? The next thing after survival is safety. The entire tantric community has jumped into security without ensuring that safety occurs first underneath. And the folks who teach the safety that goes with the security, they're the ones where it feels good to be with them and learn and what have you. And the ones who don't have safety, you've got red flags going off even as you're learning something that feels healing, because the safety has not been put there. At the same time, in order to get to being able to declare security for selves and other, that sovereignty thing, In order to, that's called going beyond the board. In order to break a board, if you hit the board with your hand, you break your hand. In order to break the board, you got to go beyond the board. Security is the beyond the board for safety. You guys with me on that? Fantastic. So what the Tantra community has done not well is the safety part. What they've done brilliantly is specialize in getting all the nuances of the security thing down so that we got something behind the board, beyond the board. Good job, Sisterhood and Brotherhood of Yoga Pants. Great job. Okay? Thank you for specializing. Thank you for taking the time. We got some stuff to clean up. Some of y'all are doing some appropriative stuff. We'll get into that at some other point. You know, a lot of y'all are correcting that. Even if you've done the appropriation before, you're realizing what you did and you're getting on it. Good job. Okay? So this sexuality piece needs to take into account the complete lack of respect that is woven into the roots of being Black in America. Not being respected even as a human being, not as in human being to human being is like, you're not human, that goes into that root chakra survival thing of where do I get to say, no, this is not safety, and yes, this is. Where do I get to have the discernment about what I get to do with my parts? Where do I get to have that when I have been declared not human in my roots? What do I have to transmute? What do I have to compost to get on an even keel around my humanity? And what it is I get to say, whether I get to say no, whether I get to say yes. Okay, well, here's the thing. When we create a rubric where that no and that yes are givens for everyone and are received by everyone, as exactly what's being said, it completely changes the entire culture because we have named a new thing. We've named a culture of actual welcome. We come out of a culture of consent and into a culture of welcome. That gives us a cauldron, not just a context. The context is sexuality. The content is what we do with it in the world. The cauldron, we create an actual cauldron of this culture of welcome that lets us talk about the pain, elevate ourselves out of the tar pit of history for how many non-white folks got here and the treatment that happened. We get to have that conversation, be in our ancestral, multi-generational pain, and then go, okay, are we good? Great, let's do the next thing. Because the truth is, I did not get raped as a Black slave. Me personally, I didn't. Do I have it in my family history? I got horror stories. That's not what I'm talking about. I didn't, any more than any white person trying to be an ally in this particular realm. How can my beloved of 28 years is white? So what does it take to be an intimate ally in navigating the sexual lemniscate when you have such different cultural roots coming together, where specifically part of those lobes of roots are two cultures where one set out from Jump Street to do damage to another because it could. There's a lot of fear in cis men of how do I do this from a place of actual love? How do I do the love making from a receptive place as opposed to a penetrative place? What is that like? What is it like to be entered? What is it like to be entered with love? What is it like to be entered with love and kindness? And then experiencing that, what is it like then to enter with love and kindness? How do we do that? Literally, what are the mechanics of that? What is the difference between how you enter a person and not be conscious and focusing your intent on what that entering is supposed to do. And part of that comes from, where are you? Are you entering someone with love in service to their bliss and growth? Or is this a fuck buddy and you're just trying to get your rocks off? And that's fun too, don't get me wrong. And if that's the only reason why you're either letting yourself be entered or you're entering folks, then you're missing out on about 95% of what's great about doing it. Because unless you're trying to make a baby, all you're doing is really potentially having fun. That's it. Anything else is gravy. Anything else. If you are not, if the out is not going in the innie to make the baby, it's everything else is gravy. So let's make good gravy. Right? And part of making, thank you, hippie hands. All right? Right. Part of making good gravy around our sexuality is, yes, accounting for the largest pain points and then bridging out of that. How do we compost that pain? What happened when an entire race was disrespected physically? Let's make sure we don't do that. Let's do the notness of that. So what would respect look like? This is the process of taking the time to go through in your nano relationship, the praxis of bridge building, right, between sexes and any other intersectional thing that you would like. And we happen to be talking about grace between races right now. So between races, this applies everywhere. It applies across intersectional divides because it's just building bridges. That's what we're doing. So bridges have basic things that make them work. And they always work. If you put all these things together, you're going to get a bridge. You don't want a bridge, don't put these things together. Do not anchor things on either side of the gap. Do not start building some stuff from one side towards the other. Don't complete building them so that they're sturdy enough for people to go over. Because if you put the two anchors and you build the thing and it's strong enough and it can carry people, you built a bridge. Get over yourself. Okay? So the clarity of the question, you come back to grace between races. I would like to add to that, grace and graciousness between races. Because grace, that's this, for me, this is my, I do not arrogate, speak for others unless requested. Y'all requested, so I'm talking. Okay, so grace is this highly spiritual event of release and embrace happening at the same time. The thing that's in your way gets released because of the presence of spirit and grace. This release occurs, and what is brought in is a sense of peace by spirit into the human that's in the contact improv dance with spirit in that moment, and there's a sense of peace and nourishment that happens. That's grace. That's that feeling of having been absolved of a thing. That's grace. And that's a spiritual event. Graciousness is, did you either raise yourself well or did your guardians raise you well? And do you know how to be good and charming and kind and da-da-da and all of those things regardless of circumstances? Like, yes, my brown butt is sitting in front of a KKK member and we're talking. I got him to rethink how he thinks about Negroes because I was way more gracious than he was and he saw it. He's supposed to be all that because he's the Aryan God guy. And yet here I am out graciousing him. It's a verb to gracious or something. And I out gracious him by a long shot, right? And he loved it. He didn't see that coming. He saw animal when we met. He saw human being when we left. That's real. Okay? So that bridge building happened because I didn't make him wrong to start with. I'm like, you believe that mess for a reason. I want to know why. And I actually listened. Less pontificating about why we're right about someone being wrong, and more listening to why we're not in alignment with them and what are the possibilities, completely changes the nature of the conversations that we have. There are things that crop up for me because Penny's white and I'm black around what I'm comfortable expressing around my sexuality and what she's comfortable expressing. There are differences because she's 72 and I'm going to be 60, and there's a 12-year gap, between 13-year gap between the two of us, almost 13 years. That's different. I grew up in LA, she grew up in Rentham, which still looks like a movie set for a little New England town. So there are all of these differences. It's not just race, is my point. Race is a major piece because we are told still by society, there are factions who say, why are you mixing races? Why are you choosing miscegenation? Why are you choosing a homogenization of our culture? And we're not. What we're learning to do is identify the things in our cultures that give us differences. And instead of being afraid of them, cherishing them and sharing them. Let me give you an example. I had a beloved Black woman, beautiful head of silver, salt and pepper and silver hair, little afro. Put coconut oil on her hair and rubbed her head on the soles of my feet, and I realized I had never felt the texture of my own hair on my body because I don't usually make love with Black people. And I don't because the people who hurt me were Black. The kids who tried to stone me and kill me were Black. The kids who hunted me and held me down and hurt me were Black. It was white folks who made them stop. So where do I feel safety? It's not even with the people who look like me. I don't feel sexual safety with the people who look like me as a rule until, well, recently. Nor would it make sense for me to. If you don't have safety, then sexuality gets emptied of its juice and nourishment. Safety needs to be in there in order for it to get in. So the grace and graciousness that I see that can happen in the rubric and the cauldron of sexuality between races, that's also available to other intersectional divisions. The grace and graciousness that's possible happens when we stay inside our root and talk about where our core wounds are, what they are, and then how do we heal them. Now, here's what's really beautiful for me, one of the many things, is that as spirit workers, as energy workers, we have, hi Isaac, we have, and we have this wonderful opportunity to weave healing into specifically the sexuality that we do express between races. We have an opportunity to actually do current healing that reverberates out in multiple directions, including backwards in time, if you will, and forwards, that the healing energy radiates out, at least for me on planet JWOW. It radiates out and it does healing in our foundation. So we get to use, to put it bluntly, we get to use sex magic to do a whole lot of healing across pretty much any intersectional lines you want. If y'all want to heal that, you are hearing it. It's true. I'm doing it. I used what people call sex magic being defined as technologies that we simply do not fully understand yet. I got to use sex magic in a major way with an entire tribe to beat an incurable illness. That stuff is real. Right on. Camilla Opeyemi, when we first met, was a huge part. She was the first person to look at me and say, stop hiding. We want to be with you with your pain so that then we can see how to help it heal. We cannot see how to help you heal if you will not share where you are. I was literally hiding because of my pain. We get to make choices like that at the root chakra level to stop ourselves from stopping ourselves. We get to, right? Hippie hands, for real, hippie hands. We get to, I love it, right? We get to take that root chakra medicine and stick it right where it wants to go to get healed, because it's aching for it. The gap between our greatness, where we feel fueled from our root chakra up, that the gap between that feeling of success and power and how we live our everyday lives, that gets bridged by our behaviors at these different levels that I was talking about, the S sequence of survival and safety and all of that, as well as the chakra levels that it works with, that those stages work with. So we're working sexually at the survival level, at that root chakra level. Remember, there's something underneath that. In order to get to survival, there needs to be the not dying part. And that's really where the pain is, to be blunt. We have a thing called Black Lives Matter because there's a whole lot of Black people not getting to do their not dying job anymore, and not by their own hand. So how do you feel safe in that root place when you can't even feel safe with your life in general? There's no sense of that sexual expression when you're just trying to get yourself handled for not dying. Right? That makes your sexual expression, your romantic expression, really different when you're just trying to get to a not dying place, not this extra, oh, I get to feel bliss, oh, I get to, do the things and have it feel yummy, and that I don't get to do that. I don't get to do that and really feel it and take it in as nourishment, no matter how much my tribe and my pack touched me. It didn't give me, I couldn't take in the love that was there. And that's one of the things, the biggest pieces between, across this particular race division. How do I feel safe expressing myself when I simply don't feel safe? And as a Black person, as a non-white person in the world, my existence right now doesn't feel like it has a whole lot of safety in it. So I'm focusing any extra energy I have not on grace or graciousness around sexuality. It's just surviving. When we can create safety, if there's nothing else that y'all hear out of this, when we can create enough just basic human safety, then a lot of these intersectional difficulties literally dissolve and compost into fuel, because it's not division from each other that's the issue. It is divisiveness sown by the dominant culture in order to keep us apart. Penny and I have 28 years of bliss. I'm going to be really clear. Bliss. And part of that is because we choose each other every morning. We choose our wonderful humanity every morning. That thing you do in your honeymoon phase when you're first together, we never stop. Yay for autism. Okay, it's like you put me on the road. And I like, that's all I got. That's what I do. I get up in the morning, I choose pretty. I get up in the morning, I choose pretty. I get up in the morning, I choose pretty. I don't know how to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm autistic. Okay? This is one of the blisses that we get to learn. And we're laughing, and I'm serious. Okay? So am I out of my time? Because I forgot. I set my timer, and then I didn't hit the thing. What are we doing? Okay.
I think we're doing great. I feel like if you have more to share, I'm getting immense amounts from it, and maybe like 10 minutes and then we can have some questions. And
That'd be great.
yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Score. All right. For those of you who don't know, I've been raped 30 times. And I managed to heal that pain by using positive sexual magic that included service to my healing as part of its energetic, specifically. Put the medicine where the medicine needs to be put. If you have a headache, you don't tend to put Advil between your toes and expect it to work. Almost didn't get that out. Okay, but I'm serious, okay? Like, we have all of this healing that we want to do and we stick it in the wrong place. Let's put the Advil, let's put the spiritual Advil where it belongs. If you've got trauma in your sexualized root chakra, then put sexual healing in the sexualized, traumatized place. I don't know. Call me crazy. It just makes sense to me. I know, right? Everybody, things that make you go, right? Arsenio. Put that sexualized medicine in the sexualized trauma place. Opeyemi, I want to say in this moment, I am blown away that you are here because I have been thinking about you because I was about to talk about this. So I was completely in shock when you came on here because I have an opportunity, little yummy lady. You're on mute, so I can't even hear what shit you're giving me. Okay.
It was serendipity and synchronicity.
I want y'all to know a lot of what I'm saying originated because of conversations from this woman. Okay? And that's real. Because she helped me think and feel into a non-shamed sexuality. Even if I couldn't live it because of the pain I was in, she like kept it in my brain. Just kept it in my brain. Right, out of how she lived her life and out of how much we talked when we were first becoming friends. And that has become this, darling. So I just want to say thank you for all the nice people.
Beautiful.
Ooh, yummy. Okay. Wrapping this all up. In a conversation, in a cauldron conversation about grace and graciousness between races, what we're talking about is bringing in the seva, bringing in the sacredness from spirit into the service that we offer on this sexual plane that joins with our survival energies so that we have an opportunity to move into an even more secure place of self-expression and expression of that safety for other so that we can be in an actual lemniscate of energy exchange where love is what gets exchanged instead of violence and or damage. And if we hold that for any sexual interaction that we have, and specifically the one around the sexuality between first whites and non-whites, and then even between, brown people and black people, and brown and black people and red people, and that, like all the different whatevers, okay? How we express our sexual energy. I just need a moment. That visual just, wow. Whew. how we love each other into a specific healing for our intersectional pain determines how much room we have to love each other from our root chakra up and our root chakra down. How do we do this love thing so that it's a flow and it's up and down? How do we feed our roots as well as our wings with what we do around our sexuality and our sex magic? We get to make choices about how we express ourselves across those intersectional divides so that they're no longer divides. I've got an easy one that I use for people, and I have actually gotten bigots to laugh with me. I said, can we just talk for a second? We're not in a race war, we're in a melanin war. There are people who hate me because I tan faster. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? And they actually laugh. And what I love this laugh. Ah, that's my favorite. They're like, wait a minute. That's true, and that's ridiculous. Ultimately, here's the conversation that I would love to have. How grace between races and graciousness between races is a conversation that we no longer need to have, because the conversation is, how do we bring grace and graciousness between humans? And whatever intersectional divides we have get bridged, because that's what we do when there's a divide that we want to go across, and we have the tools to do that. So ultimately that's my hope. And in the meantime, we take the baby steps that get us to that. We take the baby steps around a healthier sexual self-expression. We take the baby steps, the slightly bigger steps of a healthy sexual self-expression that aggregates into a culture where welcome, an enthusiastic yes, and an empowered no occur. And out of that, there's a globality that happens out of those cultures aggregating into safe spaces for whatever your intersectional thing is, male, female, colors, whatever your thing is. There's a safe place because there's a safe space where communication actually occurs about both the pain and the solutions. Does that make sense? Hippie hands. Okay, so that's it. That's about what I got to say about that for today. I want to thank you for your listening before we move forward. I want to thank you for your listening right now. I have felt this energy as a safe place to speak into about something that is near and dear to my heart for a whole bunch of reasons. And I hope that out of this and out of the questions, there is nourishment for you on your journeys. That is my hope. And then I say my thing. I'm JWOW, and I'm a tribe-sourced human. This is our legend that we are building together, sweet ones, and we're sticking to it. And so now in this moment, please, let's all just take a deep breath, a few of them, and then please ask me the questions that you have. I'd like that.
I just want to thank you again, JWOW, so much for all of that wisdom and the clarity through which you share so much. And yeah, and invite Anne to share anything that she wants to share and ask.
Thank you, JWOW. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to listen to you again for the second time, especially on a topic that is so broad too. Yeah, there's a lot of meat in there, in what you're bringing up here. But I'm curious to know about the fact about when we talk about ancestral trauma, and that carrying forward, because we all are traumatized people, whether you call yourself a white person or you call yourself a black person. We are just different sides of the same coin, you know. And I think what's coming up for me a lot with my own process is that how do I break these patterns that's been going on within my own family history, within my own cultural history, and within my own, race history, because there are levels of that. And for me, what's been coming up is none of it could be solved by now I have to look outside, but none of it could be solved by not looking at my own inner workings, my own inner belief, my own intuitive, spiritual connection to source. Because when I go to source, I feel the purity of my own soul. And through that purity of soul connection, it guides me towards how I view myself. So rather than looking at myself through the eyes of outer reflections, I look at myself through the eyes of source. And that brings me a lot of wealth, depth, and clarity into how I navigate myself through the whole process. I don't know how other people experience it, but this is my process right now. And I'm just curious to know a little bit more about how you are seeing through this mind-body connection as the healing process concerns, especially within each of us, because we have the power to heal ourselves and therefore project that healing outward. So I just want to kind of see where you are on that from that perspective.
Thank you. Let me reflect back to you what I think I heard, and then answer that. In essence, it's that that the healing that happens, is it how we stand in the healing that happens, the mind-body connection in this realm, specifically around sexuality or specifically around race? Or is it just about the mind-body connection in general and the healing that's possible for multiple generations and for us and our ancestors?
Right.
Is that it's us and our ancestors healing,
Right.
and the mind-body connection to that healing?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Hallo Junge, was ist gut? Hallo, das ist mein Hurensohn.
I think you may have the wrong space, Louis. It's all English speaking here. Okay. I have to recalibrate. Okay, our current ability to heal in that mind-body space, in part, is because there isn't a gap. We think of it as mind is this thing that has no body, and the body without the brain has no mind. And we know for a fact that you can stimulate memories and events by stimulating other parts of the body than the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we store all the everything everywhere to some extent, and then there's all the fascial tissue network and blah, blah, blah. So there's all that physiology stuff, right? I'm looking at the doctor here. Okay, and when we understand and are accountable for the power of the energy inside being accountable, then we can take that energy and put it in the places that we need to. So for example, what I do is I envision things for people. I have my own work that I do with individuals and companies. Ronnie Jean has her own work that she does with individuals and companies. Penny has her own work that she does with individuals and companies. And the three of us are coming together because I'm building out a language that teaches people how to build their own internal planetary system of language and culture that's actually healthy. Ronnie Jean, I open them to that. Ronnie Jean literally helps them harness their intent around what they're doing with that and how it can move out. And Penny has a 6-step bridge building process that she used in terms of internal and external communication to get her from being diabetic to not being diabetic at all in 3 months. Okay, so the three of us are starting to work together because this is a bridge building arc. When you're able to focus like that, you can send energy back. And here's what I mean by that. I had the opportunity doing some sexual magic work to open up as a portal to a bunch of slave souls that showed up in the space that we were in, and everybody stopped doing their sex magic work because it was group work, stopped doing their sexual magic work. They like completed it and all came over and held the space. And as I was being opened up, literally one knot at a time off of rope work, each knot, and there were hundreds of them, each knot, another soul went through my body, and my tribe sent them energy to lift them up and out because that's what they didn't have. And that happened. So there's a whole, but they could see that. I can't see. They could see them. That's a whole bunch of slaves who got to finish their thing because I'm doing this work in the world now. So that's direct healing. I'd rather have that over reparation any day. Okay. And let me be specific about me and reparation. I want everybody to understand where I stand on that. I would love to have the energies that we put into reparation into making something better now, where we're all working together so well and so big that then we can go back and actually heal stuff instead of putting a Band-Aid on a gut wound. Okay, I want us all to get better first. Put on your own cultural oxygen mask first. So when you want to do work, pick a small place. I'm not the only one talking right now, so this must be specifically for you, Anne. And if it's great for anybody else, that's wonderful. Here's a piece for you. Put your own oxygen mask on first in a specific arena that you want to heal and make it as small as you can. Be super laser targeted in, I'm going to take the energy of self-expression and sexuality that I'm opening into, that I'm receiving nourishment and I'm growing into, and take it and focus it on one place of healing and feel your way through. What was that pain like in the past? What could that pain be like in the future? And how do I become the fulcrum for that origin medicine to go out in both directions? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Can that work as an answer?
Sure. Absolutely. Why not?
Okay, great. And if you want more or a different answer, then,
No. Yeah. For me personally, it's the process is, my healing is, and I said this to Hillary the other day too. Healing for me is a very, I see it as a very personal thing for each individual, each person. And intuitively, I think there's no one medicine that governs everything, each individual. This is why it's so important for people to own and really, really tap in to what it is that is calling out within themselves that needs healing. It's very, very important because this universe, it communicates. I mean, this is no, it's not a game. It's no little game thing. We have powers. The power is all around us. You know, you just have to tap in to that within yourself and listen, silence yourself. Go there, go to the place that you don't really want to go. I know it's tough, it's challenging. It's the whole addiction thing is running away from that, you know. And the truth is do or die sometimes, you know. When you realize that you you face it, it's gonna be painful. You don't face it, it's gonna be painful. You know, you just have to choose to go there and face whatever it is that you don't face the demon. And then you realize that, hey, that was way bigger in my mind than I really thought it was, you know. And you come home to really seeing that you're the one that really have the power to really guide this energy. You're the one guiding this ship. You know, the ship is you guiding it, not some external thing outside there that's guiding it. You. And the power exists for you to draw upon to really navigate that.
There's something in here, and it's more of a tweaking. It's not a disagreement.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
would say that, again, for me, it's a contact improv dance between spirit and self. So I am being guided by spirit. My entire life is spirit guided, and I'm guiding it. See, this is the importance of the and versus but, because I am co-guiding the, as to use your analogy, the ship of my life with spirit. Contact improv dance. Everybody, thank you for introducing me to that, OPME. Every time I say the contact improv dance between spirit and self, I think of you, darling. Okay, you got me into this mess. Thank you so much. And so that's the everybody leads, everybody follows, nobody leads, nobody follows.
Right.
Okay, so the precision of the language of acknowledging that we have a co-pilot is an important piece of building the bridge between self and spirit, and the augmentation of our powers that becomes available when we're tapping into what spirit guides us to also pick and choose to fuel ourselves. Okay, so, and there's those terrible days where you know you're alone. If you've been living in the space where you know you're not alone, then in the spaces where you would normally feel alone, you don't, because you're in the habit of not being alone because you got a co-pilot.
Right.
And a friend. I'm going to stop that there. Does that help with your question? With answering your question?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, darling. You're on track. You're on track. Okay, just keep putting your feet in front of each other. You get there. Bet. All right. Thank you. OPM, yes, ma'am. Can't hear you, darling. You get it.
Get off.
There you
are
go.
Unmuted by host. Okay. I just wanted to say that your comments about safety and security were really powerful, particularly with respect to sexuality. And if we're talking grace between races, this is such a broken place. Is our American sexuality is deeply broken, and we didn't even get into pornography versus erotic and any of that, right?
Just got to get basic language and go.
Yeah. So I wanted to just share a story, which is that I, as Julie JWOW has said, have many, many years of really, really trying to use my sexuality for my own personal healing. And I think I've said on this show before that my issue was I grew up with a legacy pattern that says it's not safe to be Black, female, sexy, intelligent, and powerful. They will kill you. So that's a lot to get over. And I have had lots of exploration in sexual relationships to be safe. What I notice, as Julie made this distinction, is I have a person in my life who's been in my life for over 15 years, takes me wonderful places. I feel very, very safe. The security that I don't have has to do with where we are right now as a country. And it has to do with being sort of a third wheel in a family as a solo polyamorous person.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship style is that I'll be okay on my own and I'll come in and share what you got. Now, at this current time, I recognized our security issues have to do with being closeted or being out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of vulnerability with trying to share, hey, this worked for me, maybe it'll work for you, in a culture that doesn't honor difference very much. And one of the pieces that I did to really work on the healing was I created a sexual magic ritual for myself that had to do with healing within the race. I created a ritual with a Black man, an intact Black man, to, on Easter Sunday, we're going to get really serious here, to say I have watched so much damage for over 60 years, damage that makes a wall between me and this type of person in front of me. As JWOW said, if you've been trained into danger or prejudice that, you know, that person's going to hurt you, or if you've been hurt in the past by somebody who, you know, is of that sex or that race, it's harder, but it feels like it's so worth the effort to use this whole new vocabulary of sexual magic while we're talking about racial healing. And there's an unspoken piece, which is the easier ones that seem to connect, as in, you know, 90% to 10% are white women and men of color, and not white men and women of color, you know, which is 2 standard deviations away or whatever. So I just wanted to share that doing the work feels good. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and it is hard. And I am recognizing my need to share more and more vulnerability. I saw Kimberly Crenshaw last week, and she shares from her heart why intersectionality was the term she created 30 years ago. And it came out of a Cornell University experience of being abused by a Black man and having the authorities respond in bizarre ways. And it was very traumatic. And she shared that. But look at what creativity came out of a traumatic experience. So this is where I would echo you, Anne, that you don't want to back away from these things, but it helps to have a community or a tribe or feel like you have safety and security somewhere.
Okay, any beautiful, thank you, yes. Yeah, exactly. And as we said earlier, it's not a way. You know, it's not the way, it's a way, it's a bunch of ways. How we evolve are these idiosyncratic innovations that we each make, you and your sexual ritual on with Black man, intact Black man on Easter, okay? And I can vouch for the power of your healing as a priestess. And by the way, y'all, if you don't know this, Opeyemi is a stellar ritualist. Stellar ritualist. Gave me my first body blessing that completely changed my life. Yes, she did. Oh, and by the way, I just need to do this while she's here. This is my 6th goddess deck, and you see the condition it's in. This is my 6th goddess deck. Child, you introduced me to this deck. It's my 6th deck, and you see it's all toe up. Okay. I'm not gonna go. I can do this for hours. I'm gonna stop myself right now because I would talk with you for hours. Anyone else have a question? I'd like to, in the time that we have left, what questions you have, I'd love to answer what I can. Any other question?
I mean, if no one else has a question, I have one. So interestingly, Isaac came on and left, and I knew he couldn't stay. He happens to be my partner, intimate partner, and we do collaboration together as well. And he's been on Grace Between Races, and I was talking with him just as I arrived home, and he was sharing about learning about more exposés on childhood sexual abuse that's happening now, and how that's being more and more exposed in the Catholic Church and in many other places. And I have a teacher as well, actually, Strong Oak, who I did this reconciliation training with, who focuses on child sexual abuse, and having these reconciliation circles where she asks questions around, so what is compassion? What is connection to the earth? What are these values and practices and understandings? How can they help us to address childhood sexual abuse? And then that ends up being a conversation that we can all engage our own experience of trauma with in the circles. And so I've been sitting with that since that conversation this afternoon, and I would just love if you have any perspective to offer about how childhood sexual abuse has affected just the immense amount of trauma in our culture and in our world, and that specifically it being about children, and I know that's not specifically related to race, but I would invite that in as well if you have a perspective on that, and specifically around, you know, the horror of raping a child and how that's different than an adult relationship, adult to adult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And I know it's the last few minutes, and so it's an intense question. So
It's a question, and I'm taking a deep breath because I'm using specific techniques that I've learned from Ronnie Jean for managing my own trauma and fear around this. I was raped before I was a year old, which is why I'm a multiple. 99.9% multiples raped before we were a year old. Genius children raped before we were a year old. I also have womb memories. So I remember through that time, and then there's trauma that shuts stuff off. When you still have the innocence of discovering your world and your relationship to it and in it, and what gets inserted into that is a complex and extensive set of pre-shaming walls. And you don't have, because of that innocence and discovery, a languaging that counters that in any way. You shut down access. It can shut down access to creativity, to safety of self-expression, to the safety / confidence and creativity / invention whose love child innovation is. So the consequences of, there's the temporal consequence of early trauma, so that there are opportunities and potentials that get shut down when the walls go up to protect from the continued hurt. So you go from having this to this. Then there's choices that get made as we're in this contact improv dance with spirit, where we're given experiences and our lens of those experiences has now been affected with this big old scratch in it. If none of y'all wear, well, Ronnie wears glasses, and you wear glasses, for those of you who don't, having a big old scratch in your lens, you're not seeing what you're looking at. Okay, it's distorted. if not completely missing. So childhood trauma propagates out through our lives because of the just timing of that original damage. So there's that piece. Then there's, just like, if you haven't seen your nursery school swing that was so high up in the air that you were touching the clouds with your feet, and you haven't seen it since you were a little kid and you were actually there, and you go back as an adult 30 years later and things like this far off the ground. Okay, and you swung about this much. Okay, but you knew you were touching the sky. The opposite is also true. When your perspective as a child is that if you think that the sexual trauma is bad for you as an adult, when you've got all kinds of ways to mitigate it and still be functional, what have you, what happens when you have none of those and the event is just as big? You drop a 30-pound weight on my foot, it's going to hurt and I'm not going to die. Okay, or you drop a 30-pound weight on me, on my back, it's not going to kill me, but you drop that on the back of a child, you'll break their back if you don't actually even kill them. And it's the same weight. That's the consequence, in a nutshell, of that early trauma. Now, they're the specific circumstances of the child. In my case, that early trauma happened and I was a genius. And so what I wound up doing was instantaneously creating a coping mechanism that spread that trauma over 23 other souls so that I didn't die and I didn't lose my shit. Right? Pulled that one off, kind of. Right? The trauma to children also robs our culture of a kindness and love and respect for innocence every time it happens. Because the violence of a rape with an adult is about control. It's not necessarily about doing damage to innocence. When you rape a child, you're actually doing conscious damage to innocence, to something that you consider to be less than, and singularly unable to defend itself. There's a charge to rape with an adult because they just might turn on you or they just might get the upper hand. There isn't any thought about that with a child. That's just damage. And whatever rationalization turns that into pedophilia, sorry about that, it's not, oh, there we go, and it's a time. It's about something different. The damage is meant to be different, and the damage is different. Mm-hmm. And we can get into that at some other point. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. It does. And it helps me to understand that the massive effect on an individual and family and culture that childhood sexual abuse has. And I, of course, understand that children who have a higher melanin count are probably more exposed to it in some ways. And because of the way that white culture has looked at them as animals as well, and being able to do, whatever with them. And I'm really seeing the pain around that. And I really appreciate the invitation for us as white people to do that so that we can step forward and we can have these conversations and we can be together in the conversation and then heal together as well. And
this is how we take the steps, darling. This is how it gets to happen. This is how it gets to happen. And we get to celebrate behavior that's rewarded, persists, behavior that's cherished, innovates, behavior that's celebrated, evolves. This is how we evolve this conversation with the baby steps of individual innovations and upgrades in how we relate, how we bridge, how we communicate, how we love.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And can I just ask a question regarding to what Hillary just said, like a little element to that?
Mm-hmm.
Just to stretch it a little bit on another angle. When it happens by a person, the kid or the baby or the child trusts, which is 99.9% of the time. I think that's a point that's an element that's very important to add in here, because we assume that it's a stranger might be doing that, but a lot of times it's trusted people. So when this trusted person breaks this bond with this child, it have another dimension of effect on the child's ability to ever trust the environment,
Trust anything.
anything. So can
Trust.
you just
Here's what I would say to that then, my lady. There's a point in our lives as adults where trust becomes a choice.
Yeah.
It's not a pros and cons. I have all the reasons in the world not to trust anything on two legs that's breathing and have it be completely legitimate. Okay? And yet I choose trust more often than most, because it is the only way that for me to get past the massiveness of that breach of trust. Is to just pour all the trust I can. I call them trust plunges. It's not even trust fall or trust.
Right.
Okay. It's like serious focused. I'm going head first off this cliff into this trust thing. The authority is the given in the cauldron of a child's life. It's not something that they've yet learned to question. I want to come back to a hard piece and then say something. And do this quickly. The damage happens out of the cultural shaming and the nature of that cultural shaming. There have been cultures where children are healthily sexually indoctrinated by beloveds, where it's a conscious thing and there's a respect for the innocence, where trauma may have happened to that child in some root chakra way, and there's healing that happens from a sexual healer for that. And there are cultures where that is true. They are rare, and they have a whole set of guidelines that make that work. We don't have any of that. So it's not possible in our culture. What we do have is incredible shaming for the person who gets raped. So we're shaming the children for that being true. And we're shaming children for having feelings in the root chakra physical place where they are exploring, and it's supposed to be from a place of innocence of, wow, I got an innie, I've got an outie, you've got the thing I don't have, that's really neat. Okay, and I've got, wow, this fits in here. Okay, like whatever the thing is that you do as a kid, and there's nothing attached to it, except there's something attached to it for the sexually traumatized child, because they recognize that their innocence is not the same as the innocence of the beloveds around them. And I have never thought about that until this moment, about that being true. And that's absolutely true. You know it's not the same. You know you still have innocence in other places, in this one you don't, and you can't even tell why. So wow, I just got triggered. Ronnie G, tracking. Please help me.
You're back around to comparative innocence and shame, culturally to the traumatized child.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling y'all, get trackers in your life, man. All right. That cultural shame piece, that's where the toxins to creativity and to trust are born. They're not born inside someone who doesn't even have reference for them to discern whether it should be shameful or not. They're getting that from society saying, you bad because this happened. You're now damaged. You're now traumatized. You're now wrong. You like that's what that does. That root chakra event and its violences and malevolence generate toxins which kill trust.
Yeah.
And so you have to build it back. And you build it back, it's literally claiming the land, the soil of your that can feed the roots of a new trust, claiming it back from the graveyard of the trust that got killed. Okay. It's saying, no, I'm not going to bury my trust and then hold this whole section of me separate away from everybody and it never trusts because trust died here. And so we set up the caskets and cut this off and it's just going to be a land for dead trust. Okay, why? Trust is dead. It don't care. I mean, it's terrible, but I feel that way about people. It's like, you're not going to dig them up. They don't need the body anymore. Okay? I get the little stone things and talk to the people and the energetic and what have you, but you don't need to take up, 9 feet of space by, 5 feet of space for somebody who's not even using the body that's in the thing.
Right.
And the same is true for the graveyards of our trust. So we get to make choices about a new kind of trust that turns that graveyard into a root system of what not to do. That makes sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
I would say that last statement applies to the entirety of this conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ronnie.
All right. Yeah.
By the way, for everybody who's a spiritual thought leader, I suggest that you go out and get yourself Ronnie Jean. Okay. I've told her I'm going to start a cloning store, man. I'm going to make me some money.
Yeah, thank you, Ronnie Jean, so much for being here and supporting JWOW and supporting us all. I can feel your strength of presence and energy. Yeah.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I'm just profoundly moved by all the sharing that you've offered us today, JWOW, and for your gifts and the incredibly vast root system that you have built out of all of the trauma that you've experienced. And I'm grateful for that and all the work that you've done. Thank you. And to being connected to you through the mycelium with my own root system.
That's really yummy. Let's go make a panda. Okay. This is working for me.
and with you all as well, everyone who's here today, and especially Anne for your guidance and support and wisdom as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Opiami, for being here. I wasn't expecting you, but it's so, it's always a pleasure to have you. And JWOW, your high energy, your high vibes. I really appreciate everything that you shared.
Thank you.
And Ronnie, again, for your supporting and being here. And I just have one thing that I wanted to share with the group before we leave. I was listening to a talk between this is Adi Ashanti with Oprah earlier on, and something came up, and I thought it would be nice to leave everybody with that as we go our separate ways.
I would love that. And before you do the closing, which this is, I just want to tell people, if you want to get in touch with me, in about 2 weeks, you'll be able to go to juliewoods.com, and what you need to get in touch with me and start subscribing to this languaging and this learning will be there. So we're working on that hardcore.
Awesome.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty exciting. So thank you. All right, my lady. Anne.
Welcome. So what was said is very straightforward. It's a nice little sentence. All negative energies are looking for resolution. All negative energies are looking for resolution. It's us. We have to do it. We have to start within, and then we work with ourselves and others. But all negative energies are seeking resolution. I thought that was profound.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing I would shift from that so that it's attainable, because we have to do things in baby steps, would be that they're seeking that negative energies that wish to shift are seeking resolution, because there are negative energies that have absolutely no intention. They love exactly where they are because they feel they're in their right context.
Mm-hmm.
Anything seeking resolution is looking to be in a different context. And some of them have no desire to shift out of their context.
Mm-hmm.
And that also needs to be honored. There's an also-ness to that I would add.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, y'all. I need tea and honey and things. I can feel Ronnie Jean's energy going, okay, sweet one, now it's time for you. So I say thank you, my ladies. Thank you all. It's really been an honor and a pleasure. I need to go do some self-care now.
Okay. Blessings. Thank you again.
Okay, thank
you to
so
all our ancestors and guides and guardians and the beings of the land where we are for supporting us to do this work together. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, sweet ones. Let's make a point of talking, the four of us, again sometime soon.
Okay, wonderful.
All right.